The evening sun dipped below the city skyline, casting long shadows across the bustling streets. Among the crowd, unnoticed by the world, sat Nathan. His clothes were tattered, his hands weathered, and his gaze fixed on the ground before him. In the rush of commuters heading home, a man briskly walked past Nathan, his tailored suit and expensive briefcase radiating success. Unbeknownst to him, his wallet slipped from his pocket, landing a few feet away. Nathan's sharp eyes caught the glint of its shiny clasp. For a moment Nathan hesitated. His stomach churned with hunger. It had been 2 days since his last meal. But he reached out and picked up the wallet, the weight of its contents evident. Inside were crisp bills, credit cards, and a driver's license identifying the owner as Edward Lancaster, CEO of a prominent tech company. Nathan looked at the wallet and then at the street beyond, where Edward had disappeared into the crowd. This could be a lifeline. Yet, as Nathan stared at the wallet, a deeper battle raged within him. What he decided next would change his life forever. Nathan hadn't always been homeless. Just a year ago, he had a steady job as a carpenter. He wasn't rich, but he was happy. His hands built dreams, wooden furniture for newlyweds, shelves for children's books. But then the accident happened. A slip on a wet floor at work left Nathan with a fractured arm. His job didn't provide medical insurance, and the hospital bills began piling up. Unable to work, Nathan's savings drained quickly. Soon, he lost his apartment. Friends and family offered temporary help, but one by one, they faded away, consumed by their own lives. He found himself on the streets, surrounded by strangers who averted their gaze. Days turned into months of cold nights and empty stomachs. His pride eroded with every plea for spare change, every dumpster dive for leftover scraps. Yet, despite it all, Nathan clung to his moral compass. His parents had raised him with one unshakable lesson: do good, even when no one's watching. As he sat in the alley, holding Edward's wallet, those words echoed in his mind. He could use the money to buy food, maybe a warm coat. But something about Edward's face in the ID picture reminded Nathan of himself before life took its cruel turn. Nathan decided to return the wallet. The address on the ID was for a luxury apartment building across town. It would take hours to walk there, but Nathan didn't have money for a bus. He tucked the wallet into his coat pocket and began his journey. The walk was grueling. His legs ached, and the biting wind cut through his thin jacket. Passing by restaurants with the scent of roasted chicken and fresh bread was a cruel reminder of his own hunger. Yet he pressed on, the weight of the wallet feeling heavier with every step. When Nathan finally arrived, the building's doorman eyed him suspiciously. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone sharp. "I'm here to return this," Nathan replied, holding up the wallet. The doorman frowned but buzzed Edward's apartment. Moments later, Edward descended, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor. He froze when he saw Nathan. "I believe this is yours," Nathan said, holding out the wallet. Edward hesitated, studying Nathan's gaunt face and torn clothes. "Why didn't you keep it?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Nathan shrugged. "It didn't belong to me." Edward's expression softened, but before he could speak, the doorman interrupted. "Is everything all right, Mr. Lancaster?" Edward nodded. "Yes, it is." Edward invited Nathan upstairs, a gesture that shocked both the doorman and Nathan himself. The elevator ride was silent, the air thick with tension. Inside the lavish apartment, Edward offered Nathan a chair and a glass of water. "Do you mind if I ask about your story?" Edward said, sitting across from him. Nathan hesitated but eventually shared everything: his job as a carpenter, the accident, the mounting bills, and how he ended up on the streets. As he spoke, Edward listened intently, his eyes filled with something Nathan hadn't seen in a long time: compassion. When Nathan finished, Edward leaned back, deep in thought. "You remind me of someone," he said after a pause. It turned out Edward hadn't always been wealthy. He grew up in a small town, his parents struggling to make ends meet. A kind stranger had once helped his family during their darkest hour, and that act of generosity had shaped Edward's life. "I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for that person," Edward admitted. He excused himself briefly, returning with a thick envelope. "This is for you," Edward said, handing it to Nathan. Nathan opened it cautiously, his breath catching as he saw the stack of bills inside. "I can't take this," Nathan stammered, his hands trembling. "You can," Edward insisted. "And you will. But that's not all." Edward explained that he owned several companies, including one that specialized in handcrafted furniture. "I need someone with your skills," he said. "If you're willing, I'd like to offer you a job." Nathan's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in months, he felt hope, real, tangible hope. The following days were a whirlwind for Nathan. Edward arranged for him to stay in a small, comfortable apartment and provided new clothes and meals. True to his word, Edward hired Nathan at his furniture company. On Nathan's first day, he felt a mix of nerves and excitement. As he stepped into the workshop, the scent of fresh wood brought back memories of his old life. The other workers welcomed him warmly, and for the first time in a long while, Nathan felt like he belonged. His hands, though rough and calloused, quickly remembered their craft. The first piece he built, a beautifully carved coffee table, earned praise from his colleagues and Edward himself. News of Edward's kindness spread, and soon, local media picked up the story. "Homeless man's integrity changes his life" became a viral headline. People from around the world were moved by Nathan's decision to return the wallet, and many reached out to offer their own support. Months later, Nathan stood in his workshop, looking at a plaque Edward had gifted him. "Do good, even when no one's watching." Nathan's life had transformed. He now had a stable job, a warm place to call home, and a renewed sense of purpose. But he didn't stop there. Inspired by Edward's generosity, Nathan began volunteering at shelters, sharing his story to inspire others. One evening, as he addressed a group of struggling individuals, he said, "Kindness has a ripple effect. One good deed can change everything." Edward, sitting in the audience, smiled. He knew Nathan's words were true because he had lived them. If Nathan's story inspired you, don't let it end here. Acts of kindness, big or small, have the power to change lives. Share this video to remind others of the importance of doing good. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that prove humanity's resilience, compassion, and hope. Together, let's create a world where kindness prevails.